All right, it's time for another What's Wrong With video in 10 minutes or less. Start the timer, please. All right, the last one we did was Auburn. You guys seem to really like it. I said to let me know in the comments what team or coach or player or story in college football, whatever that you wanted me to do next in this What's Wrong With series. And I'm going to put the results up now. But according to the comment section from that video, Southern Cal. You guys want to hear me talk about Southern Cal. So here we go in 10 minutes or less. What the fuck is wrong with Southern Cal? Now, the obvious answer is Lincoln Riley, but I feel like I've spent a lot of time on here talking about Lincoln Riley's shortcomings, so let's get to that in a second. First of all, let's take a look at where sort of Southern Cal is right now, okay? I'll put this up on the screen. This is a year-by-year record for Southern Cal. You can see where Lincoln Riley took over in 2022. And he actually had a pretty good year, going 11-3, right? With pretty much a team that he imported from Oklahoma or brought with him from Oklahoma, including Heisman-winning quarterback Caleb Williams. So they go 11-3. But they lost to Tulane. So in his best season at Southern Cal, it culminated in a loss at the end of the year to a Group of 5 team. Tulane. So it is what it is. Now, Caleb Williams was back the next year, 2023. Things didn't go as well. 8-5, that season ended with a win in the Holiday Bowl, whoopity-doo. And then last year, of course, the first year in the Big Ten, they go 6-6 in the regular season, 7-6 after a win in a totally unwatchable Las Vegas Bowl. So while there hasn't really been like the disaster season at Southern Cal that we saw like at Florida State last year, or even Tennessee going back a decade or so where they had like a 4-8 season, it's a clear downward trajectory. I mean, the guy's gone from 11 wins to 8 wins to 7 wins in the 3 years that he's been there. But besides the Lincoln Riley part of it, which again we'll get to in a second, what are some sort of overarching issues with Southern Cal? What the fuck is wrong with Southern Cal? Well, we can start with fan support. There isn't any. Now, there's going to be a Southern Cal fan that shows up in the comment section and says, there are Southern Cal fans. Of course there are Southern Cal fans, but there ain't enough of them. At least not in the lean years, right? And this is sort of a similar kind of thing that we see occur at the University of Miami. It is sort of the most similar team I can find to kind of compare this to. When Southern Cal's not very good or just kind of average, no one cares. No one goes to the games. The stadium is half empty. There's no sort of like, huge fan presence anywhere, either online or anywhere else. And then whenever they get good, suddenly everyone shows up and pretends like they're a diehard Southern Cal fan, and they always have been, right? You go back 20 years to Pete Carroll's run at Southern Cal. The sidelines of those football games were a who's who of pop culture, Hollywood, and entertainment. I mean, you had Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell running around on the sidelines. I mean, it was a crazy atmosphere. It was exciting just to watch as a college football fan. But unless they're at that level, no one cares. And that trickles down. It trickles down to things like a booster and funding and collectives and donations to the university and to the athletic department. It trickles down to who watches the games on TV. Trickles down to recruiting. Look, these kids that are coming up now in terms of recruiting have never seen Southern Cal win anything. They weren't alive in the mid-2000s during the Pete Carroll run. Now, they're recruiting great this season. There's no doubt about it. They're going to end with a top 5 class without question. They could finish with the number 1 class. We'll see what happens between now and signing day, if there's any flips or anything like that. But it's hard to see Southern Cal falling out of the top 5. So they're going to have a good recruiting class this year. But is that enough to sort of save the program under Lincoln Riley? And let's keep in mind, we're talking about Southern Cal. Okay, this is a conversation I have with Florida fans all the time lately. We're not talking about Kentucky or Southern Cal now being in the Big Ten. We're not talking about Purdue or Michigan State, okay? So when we talk about saving the program, getting Southern Cal back to where Southern Cal should be, We're talking about 10 and 11 plus win seasons and competing for conference titles and playoff spots the majority of the years. That's what we're talking about. Southern Cal is a blue blood program, okay? They're not a program that should be satisfied with 7 and 8 win seasons under a head coach for seemingly forever. That shouldn't happen. Okay? And that's what's happening now. So what the fuck is wrong with Southern Cal? No fan support. No one cares. They don't go to the games. You hear the excuse, well, there's a lot of other things to do in Southern California, in Southern Los Angeles. There's a lot of other things to do. It's not like a lot of other college towns. We hear Miami fans say the same thing when no one goes to their games. Let me ask you this. All of a sudden when Southern Cal is good, does that mean there's suddenly nothing else to do in Los Angeles, so then they decide to go? No, it just means you got a bunch of fair weather part-time fans. That's what it means. That's what it means. Now, the crux of the issue is Lincoln Riley, okay? A good head coach can fix almost any problem, and Lincoln Riley's not fixing the problem at Southern Cal. So let's move on to what the real issue is, and that's Lincoln Riley. I've been telling you guys for years the guy is not a head coach. He's an offensive coordinator in disguise. This is what he is. Now, I've talked about these numbers before, so we're going to go through them relatively quickly here, okay? These are defensive stats from last season. This is opponents' points per game, 46th in the country in points per game, 46th. This is opponent yards per game, 65th in yards per game last year. Now, you want to find a good stat for them? I found one. How about this? Third down conversion percentage. Southern Cal was 18th defensively in third down conversion percentage allowed, only allowing a first down on third downs 33% of the time. That's a top 20 ranking. That is by far and away their best defensive ranking, and that's a good defensive ranking. You want to know what the problem is? Here's the problem. Opponent yards per play, they give up 5.7. They're ranked 78th in the country in opponent yards per play at 5.7. Hey, I'm not a scientist or a math major, but if you're giving up an average of 5.7 yards per play, you're not getting to very many third downs defensively. So it doesn't really matter that you're 18th in the country in third down conversion percentage defensively when you're giving up 5.7 yards per play. The opposing team is never facing a third down. So you are cutting the legs out from underneath your best defensive ability, which is the third down ability. The opponents are never getting to third down. And I don't want to hear that, oh, well, that's just 1 year. We have all been watching Lincoln Riley do this for 8-9 years, going back to his time at Southern Cal. Let's recap here. Lincoln Riley has had multiple defensive coordinators at 2 different major Power 5/Power 4 universities. He has been a head coach in not 1, not 2, but 3 major power conferences. The only constant between all of that is Lincoln Riley and the fact that his teams have had a terrible dog shit defense every single year. This is not an anomaly. This is not something that just happened once. This is the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. There are not very many head coaches in the country that I trust more when it comes to quarterback evaluation in terms of recruitment out of high school or signing through the portal and development and getting them to play at their absolute best at the college level. There's no doubt that Lincoln Riley is one of, if not the best offensive minds in college football in terms of quarterback development. Just look at the quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield was a walk-on originally. Took Oklahoma to the playoffs and won a Heisman, all the way through now to Southern Cal at Caleb Williams. I don't doubt any of that about him, okay? But somebody should make this guy an offensive coordinator and a quarterback coach. He's not a head coach. Football takes place on 2 sides of the ball. And for 8-9 years in a row now, again, 8-9 years in a row, 2 different Power 5/4 programs, 3 different conferences, and multiple defensive coordinators, it's the exact same result on the field defensively every single year. And then you get the talking season, the sort of the talking circuit that Lincoln Riley goes on every offseason where he gives the same canned answers and the fan base falls for it up until the point they don't. don't. Oklahoma fans finally got to the point they weren't buying it. Southern Cal fans are still buying into this charlatan. He gives the same speech every year. We're changing this defensively. Top-down change to the approach for everything we do on the defensive side of the ball. Changing strength and conditioning. Changing the types of players we go after and we recruit. We've heard all this before. We've heard all of this before. Best case scenario for a Lincoln Riley coach team, I'm talking about the absolute peak, is Miami last year. That's it. That's the best it'll ever be. Maybe you get to the playoffs, you're not going to win anything. This guy, how many years in a row did Lincoln Riley make the playoffs at Oklahoma with an offense scoring 60 points a game? What, 3-4 years in a row? Eliminated in the first round every single time. If Miami would have made the playoffs last year, what do you think would have happened? Eliminated in the first round. You have to play football on both sides of the ball. You can have the most suffocating defense, Iowa. If Southern Cal and Iowa were to join, they might be the most dominant team in the history of college football, but they can't do that. Iowa doesn't care about offense. Lincoln Riley doesn't care about defense. And until he does, that's the answer to what the fuck is wrong with Southern Cal.